115 attack drones, another episode of Russian diplomacy. This time, the target of the attack was Zaporizhia. As usual, civilians became the main targets of Russian criminals. I was driving my car when I noticed debris on the road ahead of me. I realized that there had been an explosion nearby. I tried to avoid it, but then there was another explosion. The airbags deployed, and the car rolled for a moment before coming to a stop. In the shadow of diplomatic gains in Ukraine, every day brings new attacks and more victims. And despite attempts to respond, Kyiv is still unable to deal Russia blows severe enough to force the Kremlin to negotiate. However, this may soon change. According to U.S. media, U.S. President Donald Trump is considering authorizing the use of long-range missiles provided to Ukraine to strike targets deep inside Russia. These are mainly air bases from which Russian bombers take off. President Trump told Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky that he is open to lifting restrictions on Kyiv's use of American long-range weapons to strike targets in Russia. For Kyiv, this is a turning point in relations with the Americans. The White House is realistically changing its rhetoric towards Russia, which is not only failing to seek an agreement, but is also escalating tensions by provoking NATO and violating the airspace of American allies.
We meet at a historic moment. Russia's brutal war aggression against Ukraine continues to rage. New technologies are transforming the very character of warfare, and the rules-based international order that has preserved our peace is under direct and deliberate challenge.
In Riga, a meeting of the alliance's highest military leaders. It is not only about Ukraine, but also about actions on the eastern flank. All countries unequivocally declare the need for cooperation in building what has been described as an anti-drone wall, a firewall capable of intercepting and destroying them.
Russian aggression extends beyond Ukraine. It's part of a broader campaign against our continent, and its impact is felt globally. From energy blackmail and economic coercion to attempts to reshape international norms in Europe, in Africa, and beyond.
At the same time, Russia and Belarus are making threats. They accuse the West of escalating the situation by raising the issue of shooting down Russian planes, violating NATO airspace. In the coming days, Vladimir Putin is also expected to present an ultimatum to Ukraine. According to the Belarusian dictator, Kyiv must accept it. Proposals concerning Ukraine, which Donald Trump heard in Alaska, among other places, and which were then forwarded to Washington for consideration and discussion. Very good proposals. If the Ukrainians do not accept these proposals, it will be like at the beginning of the special military operation. It will be even worse. They will lose Ukraine. Kyiv has already rejected these proposals. They involve renouncing the eastern and southern regions of Ukraine and international recognition of Crimea as Russian, given the recent statement by the U.S. administration, which believes that the Ukrainians have a chance to regain their lost territories. It is difficult to imagine that anyone would decide today to accept Moscow's terms and essentially declare capitulation. Moldovans are preparing for Sunday's parliamentary elections. These are the most important parliamentary elections in Moldova since it gained independence in 1991, according to President Maya Sandu. The loss of the majority by the current pro-EU Party of Action and Solidarity will pave the way for pro-Russian groups to come to power, which could interrupt Moldova's ongoing process of European integration. What's wrong with being with the Soviet Union, with Russia? What's wrong with that, people tell me? Russia educated me. I graduated from Volgograd with a degree in chemical engineering. I worked at a biological institute. Everything was fine. Everything was great. I had enough money for everything. Definitely my children and I are very responsible for what is happening in our country and what we want for our children. There is a war going on at our borders. We are afraid of war. Nobody wants it. We are worried about the Ukrainians. We are very sorry for what has happened to them. We are afraid of war, so we are turning to Europe and hoping for at least a little protection. Recent polls suggest that the pro-European ruling party may lose its majority in the 101-member parliament, forcing it to seek coalitions with smaller groups that exceed the 5 to 10% threshold for parties and blocs. These could be the pro-Russian Our Party and the nominally pro-European Alternative Bloc. The authorities in Chisinau speak of unprecedented interference by Moscow in the election campaign in order to weaken the Party of Action and Solidarity, a pro-European political party in Moldova. In addition to pro-Russian politicians such as former President Igor Dodon, Moscow is also encouraging clergy of the Russian Orthodox Church to persuade voters to support pro-Russian parties. Under the guise of religion and faith in God, manipulation and opinion forcing are taking place, that the church is being persecuted, that we are not Romanians but Moldovans, that European values are not an integral part of us as Christians, that our superior is the Russian Orthodox Church, that we are an integral, inseparable part of the Russian world. The overarching message of Russian propaganda is that Moldova's traditional family values are threatened by the European Union, which will force citizens to accept LGBT identity, degrade morality, and destroy religious freedom. We want to say yes to Europe. Who doesn't want to be in Europe? Who doesn't want good roads and freedom of movement? I say yes to such a Europe, a cultural Europe, a Christian Europe. And to gay Europe, I say no, no. If you want to come here with gays, then don't come to us at all. The path to European Union membership in 2030 is crucial for the country's future and its resistance to Russian attempts to keep the former Soviet Republic in its orbit. A parliament controlled by the Party of Action and Solidarity would keep Moldova on track for the European Union, which requires extensive legislative action. A pro-Russian parliament, on the other hand, would likely turn these efforts into a never-ending political battle. U.S. President Donald Trump has ordered his administration to declassify and release all government documents relating to Amelia Earhart, the American aviation pioneer, journalist, and author of books on aviation, who disappeared during a round-the-world flight in 1937. On July 2, 1937, Amelia Earhart and her navigator Fred Noonan set off on a journey to Howland Island in the Pacific, about 2,700 kilometers southwest of Honolulu. It was one of the stages of a 30,000-kilometer trip around the world. Earhart was already a famous pilot at the time, the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic and from Hawaii to the continental United States. Her trip around the world was to be another in a series of incredible achievements by this aviation pioneer. I have been asked by many people about the life and times of Amelia Earhart. Such an interesting story, and would I consider declassifying and releasing everything about her, in particular her last fatal flight? She was an aviation pioneer, the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, and achieved many other aviation firsts. She disappeared in the South Pacific while trying to become the first woman to fly around the world. Amelia made it almost 3/4 around the world before she suddenly and without notice vanished, never to be seen again. Her disappearance almost 90 years ago has captivated millions. I am ordering my administration to declassify and release all government records related to Amelia Earhart, her final trip, and everything else about her. After 40 days of traveling in a Lockheed L-10 Electra aircraft and covering about 3/4 of the distance, the plane disappeared from radar and radio contact was lost. Despite a quick search, the plane was not found. Apart from the most likely version that the plane crashed into the ocean after running out of fuel, other theories have also emerged, one of which suggests that Amelia lived alone on one of the Pacific Islands. Others suggested that she landed on the Marshall Islands, was captured by the Japanese, and died in captivity.
How about taking me along?
Well, gasoline is really more valuable than you are on a long flight.
You mean that 180 pounds of gasoline you think would be more useful than 180 pounds of husband?
You've guessed right.
The circumstances surrounding the death of the famous pilot Amelia Earhart remain an unsolved mystery to this day, the subject of conspiracy theories and fascination for many people. Earlier today, several hundred film enthusiasts gathered in Greenwich, East London, to set a record for the largest assembly of people dressed head to toe as a character from some of the most famous films of the last few decades.
Very fun. I've really enjoyed it so far. I've had a lot of people taking pictures, and I'm just here really as an excuse to wear this. I built it a couple of years ago, and it's nice to get it out every once in a while.
This is the perfect venue in the UK for me to actually be able to wear an outfit like this and just walk around, because in these surroundings, it's perfect. Yes. This is the costume to wear in this sort of palatial surroundings. So for me, that was it.
Oh, it feels amazing. It feels like incredible to be part of it, because we kind of didn't expect it's going to happen. And we just wanted to be part of the celebration of the Greenwich space. And yeah, the fact that we actually wanted it feels amazing.
Dressed as Darth Vader or the stormtroopers from Star Wars, characters from Bridgerton, or imitators of James Bond, they were counted off meticulously by scrutineers as they assembled in the gardens of the capital's old Royal Observatory. Characters portrayed included Queen Charlotte, Luke Skywalker, Batman, and Indiana Jones. An official from Guinness World Records proclaimed it a record-setting gathering after 874 fans were counted off. The event was organized to mark 100 years of the historic Elstree Film Studios.